We're often told that we're living in a world where people value authenticity and honesty over superficial validation. But the stark reality is that many of us are desperately desperate for approval, and will go to great lengths to receive it from others, even if it means sacrificing our own genuine feelings and needs. This deep-seated craving for validation stems from a primal need for connection and a fear of being rejected or abandoned, but it often manifests in insidious ways, such as constant checking of social media, a need for constant reassurance, or a tendency to people-please at the expense of our own boundaries. I've seen this pattern play out in my own life, and I'm sure you have too. We've all been there when we've felt the need to present a perfect online persona, or to seek validation from others just to feel good enough about ourselves. In this video, we're going to peel away the layers of this invisible web of validation and examine its corrosive effects on our relationships, our mental health, and our ability to form genuine connections with others. A deeper understanding of this hidden dynamic will shed light on why true empathy and intimacy often seem like an elusive and fleeting dream. In the unrelenting pursuit of validation, we inadvertently weave an intricate web of expectations that strangles our capacity for genuine intimacy. Underlying this need for approval is a fragile sense of self, constantly yearning to be confirmed by the validation of others in order to alleviate the deep-rooted fear of inadequacy. What we often mistake for love is nothing more than the desire for validation, a misguided attempt to fill the void within, leaving us vulnerable to the whims of those who possess the approval we so desperately crave. The unseen demand for constant approval becomes a tool for control, allowing individuals to maintain a semblance of power in their relationships, as they seek to dictate the narrative of who they are and who they wish to be perceived as. This pervasive need for validation also serves as a clever tactic for self-deception, as we convince ourselves that our actions and decisions are guided by a desire for mutual growth and connection. When in reality, we are merely seeking to feed our own insecurity. In the end, it's not the validation of others that sustains us, but the validation we provide ourselves. A truth that can only be uncovered when we learn to confront the dark shadows of our own insecurities and ego, and find the courage to be seen and accepted for who we truly are. We're drawn to the subtle cues of unspoken approval because deep down, we're convinced that validation is the key to our very existence, a desperate attempt to silence the constant whispers of inadequacy within. When we crave unspoken approval, we're not looking for genuine connection, but rather a means to control the narrative of our lives, to dictate how others perceive us, and thereby how we perceive ourselves. The unspoken demand for approval is a thinly veiled attempt to alleviate the crushing weight of our own insecurity, to fill the void left by a lack of self-acceptance and self-worth. Unspoken approval is the great illusion, a mirage on the horizon of our relationships, promising an oasis of validation that never truly arrives, only leaving us to chase the next fix, the next fleeting high of affirmation. We crave unspoken approval because it's a clever distraction from the underlying fears that drive us, a cleverly disguised attempt to avoid the vulnerability and uncertainty that comes with truly being seen and understood. In the end, the pursuit of unspoken approval is a form of self-deception, a cleverly constructed web of expectations and pretenses, a desperate attempt to keep the truth of our own fragility and impermanence at bay. When we constantly seek validation, we often do it as a means of controlling those around us, of ensuring they see us in the way we want to be seen. But in doing so, we create a prison of expectations that no one can escape, not even ourselves. The real motive behind our need for constant validation is rarely a genuine desire for connection, but rather a desperate attempt to stave off feelings of inadequacy and rejection, to mask the fear that lies at the core of our insecurities. We're drawn to people who give us validation, not because they are interesting or kind, but because they are a means to an end, a way to prop up our fragile sense of self-worth, to feed the ego that craves constant reinforcement. Self-deception is at the heart of our validation-seeking behavior, as we convince ourselves that our worth is tied to the opinions of others, that our identity is defined by the reactions of those around us, rather than by our own inner light. When we're constantly seeking validation, we're also constantly seeking control over the narrative, control over the emotions, control over the outcome. But in doing so, we lose sight of the very thing that truly matters: the depth and richness of our own inner lives. The true horror of constant validation is not that it's a never-ending cycle of craving and dissatisfaction, but that it slowly erodes our capacity for empathy, for true connection, and for feeling seen and heard by others on our own terms, rather than by theirs. Our desire for constant validation isn't about seeking genuine human connection, but a desperate attempt to silence the inner voice that screams we're not enough. Underneath our craving for external approval lies a deep-seated fear that without constant validation, our sense of self-worth will crumble. We're willing to sacrifice real connections and authentic relationships to feed our insatiable appetite for validation, all while convincing ourselves we're just being considerate and sensitive to others' feelings. The irony is that our constant pursuit of validation is actually a thinly veiled attempt to exert control over the people and events in our lives, to prove to ourselves and others that we're deserving of love and respect. When we're willing to do whatever it takes to elicit validation from others, we're not being courageous or open, we're actually being cowardly and avoidant, unwilling to confront the parts of ourselves that we're most afraid of. The truth is that our validation addiction is a form of self-deception, a cleverly crafted strategy to avoid the pain of genuine self-reflection and the possibility that our true nature might be flawed, imperfect, and worthy of compassion, rather than constant approval. Our need for validation is so deeply ingrained that we have come to equate our self-worth with the frequency of likes and comments, never stopping to question whether the attention we crave is genuine or simply a fleeting distraction from our own feelings of emptiness. To break free from the chains of constant validation, we must first acknowledge that the need to constantly prove ourselves is often a desperate attempt to fill the void left by our own insecurity, a cry for help that is drowned out by the loud voice of our ego. The pursuit of validation is a classic example of a self-fulfilling prophecy, where the more we seek approval from others, the more we sacrifice our own autonomy and authenticity, slowly becoming the very persona we strive to be accepted by. But here's the kicker: the unspoken demand for constant validation is not just a cry for acceptance. It's also a means of control, a thinly veiled attempt to dictate how others perceive us and subsequently manipulate their behavior towards us. When we prioritize validation above all else, we create an artificial environment where the stakes are rigged against true connection and empathy, where relationships are transactional, and where the ultimate prize is not love or understanding, but the elusive, fleeting high of being liked and accepted. And yet, the more we crave validation, the more we reveal our true self to be a mere mirage, a delicate facade that shatters the moment it's confronted with genuine human connection and the vulnerability that comes with it. As we navigate this complex web of validation, it's time to reclaim our humanity, to prioritize authenticity over approval. I encourage you to reflect on your own life, to examine the spaces where you seek validation and where you truly feel seen. If you resonated with this conversation, hit that like button, share your insights in the comments below, and subscribe for more videos that explore the mysteries of the human experience.